Hello and welcome. I'm Rick, and I have just started the Champion Individual Rights YouTube channel, which emphasizes the importance of digesting reality in a moral context. I promote for the recognition of individual rights on a global basis, with the understanding that every individual should have a right to their own life, privacy, and possessions, regardless of their ethnicity or the geography upon which they preside. Today, we live in a world where individual rights are not even recognized. Why is this happening, and what can we do to turn this situation around? We have to start by digesting reality in a moral context. I put these graphics together, and they are comprised of perceptions from Immanuel Kant's, which are in white, and my perceptions are combined with his, which are in orange. Kant explains in his writing that synthesis is the forming process of understanding, which is where I believe a contamination has taken place, and it is used in order to gain real experience. Now, within synthesis, human comprehension has two primary facilities, the sensibility and the understanding. Kant explains that within the sensibility is space and time, intuitions, and analytic judgments, and comprised within the understanding are concepts and synthetic judgments. All of these aspects of understandings are united and connected together, and this is how we start deciphering the information around us. Kant points out that thinking is uniting representations, and that we have to bring all of our representations together in a logical, organized fashion in order to gain real experience. Now, there cannot be any contradictions. Because thinking is uniting representations, there cannot be any contradictions. A contradiction can only exist in an imaginary world, not the real one. Now, all morality stems from the recognition of individual rights. If an individual doesn't have a right to their life, somebody can just walk up to them, put a gun to their head, pull the trigger, and there wouldn't be anything wrong with it. So thinking is uniting representations with the understanding that an individual has a right to their life. Within our base perceptions, one has to have well-defined moral values which are used in order to help make accurate determinations in regards to making morally sound judgments. In order to digest reality, within the forming process of understanding, there are two very important rules of understanding that must be used in helping to make accurate determinations. Immanuel Kant points these rules out. The first one is distinguish between knowing and thinking. When you know something, you can prove its possibility. When you think something is opposed to knowing it, you can think what you please, providing it's a possible thought and there's no contradictions. It still leaves open the possibility that that particular appearance might not be accurate. An appearance being an idea derived from a perception or a combination of perceptions. So in a nutshell, never claim certainty to that which is hypothetical. And two, always look for contradictions to your arguments. Why? Once again, because thinking is uniting representations. There can't be any contradictions. If you're not looking for contradictions to your arguments, then in all likelihood, you're living in an imaginary world filled with contradictions, an illusionary world where reality is often scoffed at. Now, I believe that there is a real matrix that is taking place and that people have been processed for thousands of years with this sort of a thought process so that they can easily be controlled. The real matrix takes place within the forming process of understanding. It consists of an imaginary world filled with contradictions, an illusionary world void of moral cognition, where words often have no intrinsic meaning, leading to a state of mind where reality is often scoffed at. I've created this model of the contamination. Within the contamination, individual rights are not even recognized. Perceptions are filled with contradictions. Words have no intrinsic meaning, and there are no well-defined moral values, which should be used in order to make accurate determinations in regards to making morally sound judgments. The way governments do it is they prop up the good goal fallacy, which props up the illusion that everything they are doing is okay. Reality is not deciphered in a moral context. Now, in reality, we know this as an individual. The higher my goals are, and the more people that they affect, all the more important that the means of obtaining my goals be good. Let me give you an example of how this contamination works. U.S. politicians have placed microphones in many of our electronic devices, recording all of our conversations without our consent for many years, all in the name of protecting our security. At first they denied it, but eventually it came out this was a reality, and they propped up this illusion as being okay because it was for some good goal. Now, it states in our Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. U.S. politicians are supposed to be protecting our rights in the name of security, not taking away our rights in the name of security. What is taking place today in America is the ultimate political inversion, as stated in our Declaration of Independence, a totalitarian state in which we exist to serve our masters. Personally, I'm tired of them lying to me all the time and getting away with it. Your masters get away with lying to you, not your public servants. Now, if an individual placed a device that recorded or listened to what you were saying without your consent, if convicted in a court of law, they could be found guilty of the crime of stalking, and rightfully so. Today, all U.S. citizens are being stalked by the political leaders of the United States. Now, if we are to digest reality in a moral context, we have to understand that the politicians should be bound to the same laws of the conscience that the average individual is bound to, because the moral law applies to all rational creatures necessarily, to all of humanity, and that would include the political leaders of the world. It's very important to understand that the politicians should be bound to the same laws of the conscience that the average individual is bound to. It's time for a peaceful revolution of thought. It's time for us to start fighting and promoting for our rights. Champion Individual Rights promotes for the recognition that every individual should have a right to their own life, privacy, and possessions, regardless of their ethnicity or the geography upon which they preside. Just the opposite position of the morally bankrupt New World Order nonsense.